The Galactic Starcruiser will eventually turn into Galactic Medieval Times. Change my mind. Rising moons, everyone, and welcome back to Not for Lack of Trying. Today, I am dressed as a smuggler. I'm too cheap for a Leiku, and I'm not talented enough to make one, so this is what we get. Welcome back to Event Planner Fixes the Galactic Starcruiser. Today, we're going to talk about what I got wrong, what I got right, and what still needs our help, because you know they need help. Holly, editing Holly, put this at the beginning.
You got it, boss.
So there's been a lot of mixed media about this whole experience. You have either the diehard Disney Star Wars fans who say there's nothing wrong with this experience, and then you have the people who are just crapping all over it and saying, how could anybody possibly waste their money on this? This is ridiculous, and you are dumb for having thought it was a good idea. But I would say most of us sit somewhere in the middle. You know, we watch all this content to see, is this something where if I save up a lot of money over time, is this experience going to be worth it? No cruise experience is perfect. No vacation experience is perfect. No one's expecting it to be. But because it is so expensive, hi buddy, want to come up here? Come on. No one is expecting it to be perfect, but we still want to know if it's going to be a good time. So it's really difficult to navigate. Where does the Starcruiser actually fall in terms of it's amazing and perfect, or it's a garbage pile? It seems really difficult to get past the fact that Disney promised these kinds of experiences back as a part of the experience for Galaxy's Edge. Then they decided to make a hotel and basically put all those fun things behind a paywall. If you're not sure that I'm right, here's the level of close-up interactive experience at the park included with your ticket, and here's the level of interactive experience when you have the $6,000 paywall. Look how close they are to Rey interacting with the crew versus behind a structure very far away or at Batuu up on a scaffolding where you can't even talk to them really. But first, before we get into it, let's talk about where I was wrong. I will admit it. Apparently, the food is pretty good and imaginative, except the hot dog and the purple bun. Although the eating area does have cafeteria vibes, I am glad that they listened to me and they made the non-plated meals all you can eat buffet style. The blue shrimp is just as weird as everyone thought it would be. Apparently, it's super hard to mentally get past the purple shrimp. Purple. Mentally get past the blue shrimp. It has a cool presentation with the dry ice and the plating, but I think the blue either needs to be way toned down or eliminated entirely, or just leaving it the pink natural shrimp with a blue dyed cocktail sauce, and people can kind of choose how much blue they want. So the itinerary was wrong. There is a lunch buffet before the cocktail hour later in the evening. So I think this should really be adjusted on the itinerary, because you know that if it's boarding at 1 and then there's lunch, then families with kids will undoubtedly have eaten before getting on the ship, anticipating that they're not going to eat again until 4 o'clock. So the itinerary does need to be updated. I was also wrong about that there is role play from minute 1. Thank the maker. And the muster drill is also role play. So excited about that. Apparently the sabacc is also better. They do have tables in the cafeteria for regular play, and then the championship itself is played on the hollow sabacc table in the sublight lounge. Also, there are rooms with, levers and buttons that do things, but this is sort of sequestered to the engine room itself or the cockpit. I think if they're going to keep the smooth textured walls, then they really need bigger windows all throughout the atrium, everywhere that you see, but we'll talk more about windows later. I was also wrong that the bridge training does have several different mini games, and each of them is integrated into the story in a different part. It is still pretty simple and basic button mashing, but it is cool that the story is different based on what time you sign up. So there's a version where you have to get Rey on the ship, or there's an asteroid field. You get it. The box truck, the infamous box truck. So it is built in a way that ADA accessibility won't break immersion, which is awesome. They do have the door pressed right up against the edge, so it's kind of hard to tell when you're stepping from one into the other, but I think they actually could have utilized the bumps in the road from the box truck and showing that there's turbulence as you enter through atmosphere. That would help fix it a little bit, and also getting rid of the stupid droid that is so annoying. Just jibber jabber, turn it off. Where I was right. So the actors are so good. They are so earnest in their presentation of their characters. It's very cool. It seems like they really did a lot of rehearsal, and I think they got some really good improv actors for the Galactic Starcruiser. They do a great job. I was also right that there is a sense of urgency, too much so that you're kind of rushed to the next activity, kind of squeezing out all that money that you possibly can from this very expensive experience. There is a sense that you're going to miss out on something, and you're trying to get through as many things as possible, and that kind of takes away from the experience in itself. I was also right about the rooms being too small. Oh, they're so small. They are compact. They are really clever with the way that you can store things away, but they didn't necessarily have to be because you're not really confined to a cruise ship. You know, this is a building. They built the schematics. And I think they just built it too small. But I mean, what did you expect? Like, this is the $14,000 cabin on the Star Wars at Sea voyage. This room is terrible. Do people who criticize this hotel not understand what the current standard of Disney luxury vacation is? It's this. Considering in canon, Star Wars has ships that are a mile long, you'd think a luxury cruiser would have above average size rooms, but you'd be wrong. Also, from what we know now, the bunk beds are pretty uncomfortable for adults. They are long enough, but they're not very wide. They're essentially the equivalent of a college freshman dorm room mattress, and they're also pretty difficult to get on and off the ladder. It's meant for children. Also, there are only a few plugs in the room, and none of them are actually in the bunk bed. And we know that the electrical could have been done because there are lights up in the bunk bed, but I think that they didn't put plugs up there because they knew it would be a safety hazard for children, which means they knew that children would be sleeping in this, which means they knew adults weren't going to be sleeping in it. So the New York Times, the New York Post, as well as several others have said that there is a $20,000 room, but no one really seems to have pictures of it. But they don't really need to market it. It's something that your publicist would call ahead for and book it on the phone straight through Disney with a huge deposit so they know that you're serious before sending you pictures. It's absolutely for the uber rich, for sheiks, for very important people that don't have budget consciousness in mind. They just want to be on this experience. Think about Succession, the hospital suite where they're first staying. Those absolutely exist in hospitals and regular hotels. It's for the uber wealthy. I would be shocked if the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser didn't have this. But upon calling, the only room that I was able to find that was the most expensive was the $10,000 room. That seats about 8 people. It has like a living quarters and maybe a little bar area, but that's as expensive as I could find was the $10,000 room. It's probably just because I'm not important enough. I was also right about the lightsaber training being so dumb. It's really rough. It's an easy fix. Put it in the Oculus and stick it in Luke's helmet, and you can have clips that go on your lightsaber that you bought that's part of your ticket, and you can use your lightsaber in the training room. Boom, fixed. I was also right about immersion breaking when you leave from the ship to Batu. Like I said before, you should absolutely get exclusive access at night. Batu is no different for the cruiser folks, and it's the same, but with less character interaction. So really, like, go get your food and drink, scan some stuff on your data pad, and head right back to the ship. It's not really worth your time, it seems. The personal experience isn't so special because Rise of the Resistance breaks down pretty often. And if it does, then they do their best to compensate you. But it's possible that you're only in town for this one trip, and a lightning lane pass for another date simply isn't going to work for you and your family. Things to improve because there are many, and we can do it. We deserve an awesome trip, so let's keep improving. Number one, it's way too heavy on the data pad usage on Batu and on the ship. I understand that the cast can't do 50 interactions where they're supposed to know exactly where every single passenger is on their journey. But right now, helping someone smuggle something is really just scanning a QR code and then pushing a button on a different part of a ship. It's not very engaging. The hacking is very similar to the tasks from Among Us. There was a moment that I saw on a YouTube channel where they tried to role play with the captain and talk about, what they were doing and ask how they could help and that sort of thing. And the captain just said, well, check your data pad, and then walked away. What a waste of an opportunity. Which leads us to number two. There needs to be more tangible things for the missions. The only thing that I saw right now is that you get like a coaster from Oga's Cantina, and then you get a 1 of 3 code that's underneath your receipt at dinner. Now, these are really cool. And the Gaia luggage sneak, where you're sneaking it across the ship into the elevator away from the first order, that's also really cool. There needs to be more things like that because as of right now, there's just way too much data pad usage. The finale, it's a little bit rough. The switch off between the fancy lightsaber and then the one that she fights with is pretty obvious, but I think it'll be cleaned up with more repetitions. Same with like the sparks that Kylo's hits the part of the ship and then like sparks come off from his saber. I think the timing will become more crisp as they perform it more. Overall, the choreography of the lightsaber fight is pretty good, and the force drag that Kylo does is pretty nice. I think Rey deflecting the blaster bullets is really dumb. They simply don't have the technology for it. Just cut that part entirely. It looks pretty rough. Also, the dialogue of Kylo with his mask on is a little bit muddy. Oh gosh. I think it'd be easier if he just didn't have the robot helmet voice. And think about it. They have a fake Rey. Why not have a fake Kylo Ren? Why not have a fake Luke or Leia or a Darth Vader? They have a Darth Vader on the actual Star Wars Day at Sea on the Disney Cruise Line. So obviously it's what people want. They can do it for some reason they just won't for Galaxy's Edge. Overall, it's a fun finale, but not all of us want to be dragged into your Reylo trash. As I see it right now, I don't think that the smuggler path is really different from the resistance path, is really different from the Jedi path. But we know that the Jedi weren't soldiers, they were peacekeepers sent out to do bipartisan negotiations. I think this should really be an opportunity to state who you are to the First Order and try to negotiate peace or the release of Chewbacca or negotiate the release of Sammy or settle squabbles among different crew members or, an argument between a droid and the human that work together in the mechanic room. That could be kind of fun. I think that new Star Wars forgets that when we see Yoda in the prequels, he was the ultimate, let's sit back and wait and see how things unfold. Rey is a Jedi, but ultimately she's a rebel soldier. Another thing that Jedi could do different from the rebel soldier line is they can role play de-escalations between the stormtroopers walking around or the admiral or people being kind of too rowdy and hostile. The fun police. Also, there's no real win for the First Order. There should be some benefit or winnable thing that you can do to kind of satisfy the guests that choose to work with the First Order. My solution is to add either a droid or a person, and they're sort of wanted by the First Order. And this person isn't essential to the final plot or the final scene, but your job is to maybe gather proof that they're working for the Resistance, and you can bring that back to the Lieutenant, and then he calls for the public arrest of this person, and it's an event where they can haul them off by the First Order and have them under arrest, and the First Order folks can cheer and know that they've done something tangible. And at the end, the Resistance can leave it open well, we lost blank, but we'll get them back soon, and they can just leave it open and it doesn't have to be resolved. When you go to Batuu, you get a pin that says that you're from the ship. And I still think you should have a pin or a bracelet or something that shows where your allegiance lies so cast members can interact with you accordingly, and it makes for a tangible souvenir. But really, the pin that shows that you're from the Halcyon is kind of all that you get when you're on Batuu. And for Batuu, I think that there should be a different ride for Smuggler's Run. Now, I know this is a huge ask, but if you've been to Batuu before, most people who will be on this cruise will have gone to Batuu before. So when you're going on it from the cruise ship, it doesn't really feel special. There is a little line where Rex says, "Oh, you're on the fancy cruise ship," but that's really it. There needs to be a separate ride so it feels different and special when you're on the cruise ship versus when you're just regular Batuu patrons. There's a cast dialogue issue from the videos that I've seen. People that have gone from the cruise ship to Batuu, Rey and Vi aren't cued in to any of the Starcruiser plot. So when folks from the videos that I've watched try to interact with them about it, they didn't know what was going on. And I'm sure it's just a familiarity thing, but it definitely needs to be fixed quickly. Need better dialogue from stormtroopers. Oh my gosh, it is so painfully obvious that they have pre-recorded responses. It's really obvious that they're clicking a button somewhere in their suit and that controls what they say. Just put a mic on them. They can have funny dialogue. Why do we have to have the pre-recorded lines for stormtroopers in Batuu and in the Starcruiser? It doesn't really make a lot of sense when everyone else can dialogue with people authentically. I said I would talk about Windows again, and I was not wrong. I don't know what this hand thing is. Okay, so Windows. We're in space. We should see way bigger windows in the transport, in the ship, on the shuttle, on and off of Batuu. We need windows. The shuttle to the ship, lifting off into space, we don't necessarily have to do a Star Tours version of wiggle seats, but we really need giant windows to see the process, not a 2-minute section of droids docking you to the ship. When a plane takes off, tell me you don't see 90% of the windows in your plane rolling up, because people like to watch the Earth get smaller. And this would be such a cool way to integrate immersion into your Batuu experience, to sell that you're going into space when you have the bigger windows, seeing the Earth get smaller, and then they can switch to CGI and then show the space situation going on. And the windows in the Halcyon needs to be way bigger. Basically, the bridge windows need to be a lot more of the atrium. We're in space. We're paying money to be in space. Let me see space. So the fact that they say you don't need to be a diehard Star Wars fan or even like Star Wars to enjoy this experience is pretty silly. Do you know anyone who doesn't enjoy Harry Potter spend more than a second in Harry Potter world? No. So saying that, sure, you can pay money and still enjoy it sounds a little Scrooge McDuck to me. Also, you can get exclusive merch from the Galactic Starcruiser, including clothing and cosmetics and tiny models of the ship. It's merchandising. I still think they need to include a free lightsaber with your experience and a free droid build as part of your cruise. And you should get to carry the hilt of your lightsaber around for any of the experiences you want to on the ship. You've paid for it. You deserve the free lightsaber. Media Day was interesting. Of a lot of the footage that we have out there right now are people who were given a free trip to be there. So the audacity to put that merch up on eBay afterwards to sell from your free trip is ridiculous. The general public is already pretty skeptical of those that are going on the free trip because you know that they didn't pay for it. You know that Disney is expecting them to say 99% nice things. And now they're trying to make money on a free trip that most people can't afford. So it's pretty disgusting. It's not that I don't think all these influencers deserve to go. Obviously, they've put lots of work into their channels, and I'm like a little sad that I didn't get invited. But I think they missed the sore spot with their audience. You know, the audience is watching their videos to either assess whether the $6,000 price tag is worth it or live vicariously through them for an experience they'll never be able to go on. But there is a way that you can be honest and genuine about your experience without absolutely trashing the event or coming across as disingenuous. I watched a lot of YouTube content from the Starcruiser, and Molly from allears.net, absolutely diehard Star Wars fan. She's adorable. Go watch her channel. She was moved to tears during a certain event in the Starcruiser. No spoilers. And this is not a diss. I too am prone to tears, and I could see myself being totally swept up by the moment and moved by whatever I'm watching. But even she said at the end that the $6,000 price tag for the experience is really hard to justify, and she got it for free. So there's a lot to be said in that comment alone. So as an event planner, I did an analysis of breaking down what it takes to make the ship run and how much they're bringing in with profit. And the numbers aren't really adding up. So let's go look at this spreadsheet. Just kind of generalized staff, the general crew that we kind of see around the ship, or a lot of the people that you won't actually see around the ship. I'm guessing it's probably about 75 people. Now that is a really generous number. We know that Disney notoriously underpays staff, but they usually get paid around $8.25 an hour, but I'm going to round it up to 10 just because it's really specialized, and we're just going to deal with nice round numbers. If there's 75 people doing basic staff protocol, they get paid $10 an hour, and let's say they work 8-hour days, 3 days in a row. We know that Disney's not going to pay these people overtime. They're working 8-hour shifts. So 8 times 3, 24. Their general cost of salary is $18,000. Specialized staff, this would be the specialty chefs, the crew that maybe you don't necessarily interact with personally, but the person probably like controlling the droid, the person helping the captain in the room, making sure that, props are set up, the truck driver taking people to and from Batu, not necessarily the face-to-face actors, but specialized staff, like these people will probably be getting paid, let's say $15 an hour. And once again, these folks are not going to be getting paid overtime. Their specific staff cost is probably around $7,200. And then the FaceTime actors, the, Gaia, the manager, the lieutenant, the stormtroopers, the bartender staff, those specific people that you're getting way more face-to-face interaction, that's probably about 30 people. And let's say that they get a beefy $20 an hour. I've kind of generalized from the start of the day to the end of the day, plus an hour each time. And that's about 31 hours in their total time for the event. And that's a bigger chunk of change. So as of right now, the most money that they're going to be bringing in for the room cost is the $59.99. And then the least amount of money they're going to be bringing in is the $48.01 or $09. So let's say that all 150 guests are paying this big price. This is how much money they could potentially be bringing in for the Galactic Starcruiser. And for the least amount of people, and we know that there are suites, so this is the least amount of money that they would bring in for the 150 people is this much money. Both of these are an insane amount of money to be bringing in every single trip over the 3 days. That's insane. The total potential earnings that they could be bringing in, that up there. So if we have staff pay, these numbers are going to blow your mind. So based on these average costs, food cost, let's say generalizing, every single meal is $20 a plate. As an event planner, that is a huge budget. And it's not like they're getting served filet mignon for every single meal. So $20 a plate, and you get 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners through the trip. The food cost is about $18,000. Now maintenance, this could be, maybe a button, a kid presses it too hard on the dashboard, a bridge training, and the button gets stuck. Maybe the levers or certain things in the engineering room, those get broken. They need to be repaired. This is allotting $3,000 for every single trip to have maintenance costs. I think that's more than plenty for maintenance on a trip by trip basis. Next, the HVAC. I get it. Florida's super hot and humid. They need to be pumping the AC units so that people can be comfortable. They probably have the dehumidifiers running at all times. I get it. So let's allot $3,000 for HVAC for the entire building for the 3-day trip. Other costs. This could be anything. I just put water here because, people are going to be doing laundry, flushing the toilets, taking showers. Other costs are kind of built into and associated. I don't have the schematics for this building, but let's just say, generalizing, that other costs are around $10,000 for the 3 nights. Okay, things are really adding up. Cleaning costs. This includes turn down service for the rooms, vacuuming, giving fresh towels, cleaning all the bathrooms. The products needed to clean all those bathrooms. So we can build in, let's say, $6,000 for the 3-night stay. Still a very generous cost estimate. So altogether, this money equals around $83,000. That's being extremely generous every step of the way. That's a lot of money. But considering the difference between how much we've brought in and how much it costs to operate, there is a difference between over $500,000. There's a huge difference between the amount of money they're bringing in and the amount of money it costs to operate this thing. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Eventually, I do think that this Star Wars Starcruiser experience will actually just turn into medieval times where you pay maybe $500, which is still a huge sum of money to pay for a dinner theater experience. But I think that they're going to cut out the hotel portion, make that just the hotel, and then have the dinner theater experience be, a several-hour thing, sort of like medieval times where there's, fanfare and a plot and all that kind of stuff. And you have Star Wars authentic food, and then that's it for the night. And you come dressed in your Star Wars things. I think that's where it's headed. Once the summer is done, international travel is lifted, and most people have gone through, and the hotel bookings sort of dry up. And essentially, it's just going to be Star Wars medieval times.